All right, guys, welcome back to another video. It's your man Jay, and welcome to another episode of Is It Really Worth It? So today we've got another phone on the chopping block, and this is a brand new phone from Apple, and it's called the iPhone 14 Plus. Now, there was a lot of speculation about whether a bigger iPhone was going to come out at a more affordable price, and this is what Apple decided to bring out. So ultimately, we're going to run down the same way we did for other devices that I've put on this chopping block right here. And we're just going to talk about my experience with this device, how I feel about it, and whether I think it's worth it or not in certain areas of it as a package. So the first thing I want to start with is the design of the device. So this is Apple's 14, 13, 12, and a bigger body. The design of the device, now personally, I don't like this slanted Apple, the cameras like this. I like them on the 12 where it's going up and down. That's just personal preference. Hardware wise, I do love the colors that it comes in. I love the aluminum size with the brushed aluminum on here, basically. Not really a fan of the glossy back on any smartphone, but the colors in this one really make it pop, so it's definitely a good thing. I think pretty much that's going to be it, man. You don't have anything changing from the smaller design. They literally show it that way, that they're stretching it out. So the design of it, I think they definitely should make some changes. I don't think that for what you're paying for this device, this should have been the design. They could have done something to make this device to stand out, to make it a little bit different. But basically, when they advertise this, they're literally saying we just made it bigger. That's what they've done. So, the design of it, not really worth it to me. Now, hardware-wise, this feels really good. This is ultimately an iPhone 13 Plus or 13 Pro Max at a much lower cost, and it weighs less. So you do have a 23 milliamp hour battery, 6 gigs of RAM. You got the same display as the iPhone 13 Pro Max. You've got the cameras from the 14 because you have some upgrades there, and we'll talk about that later. But ultimately, this is a huge win for people who wanted a less affordable device going into the next versions from Apple. Because Apple does have the 14 Pro Max now, which replaces the 13 Pro Max. And this device is a completely new device. So yeah, it's definitely worth it when it comes to the hardware because it feels really good. And actually, I always say things about the 13 Pro Maxes because that's where this device basically was built from. But this feels better than the iPhone 13 Pro Max in the hand. I still have an iPhone 13 Pro Max. This is much more lightweight, man, because of the aluminum body and still it's stainless steel. But hardware wise, this is a huge win. But there is one fail that this device is not worth it when it comes to the hardware, and there is no physical SIM card. That is a huge bummer for me. Good thing for me is that I don't change this phone number. This is just a phone that I bought on a phone number that's always had an iPhone. So that's not an issue for me because I have multiple phone lines. But that is a huge issue for some tech enthusiasts. It even became an issue for me at one point with my main phone number, because I don't normally keep an iPhone on that one regularly. I rotate it. So the eSIM conversation, that is the only reason I've got rid of my 14 Pro lineup for my main line and went back to a 13 Pro lineup, because I needed that physical SIM card because I have to review so many devices. I change phones a lot, and that is why that is a huge downfall for this lineup, their new lineup, because it doesn't have a physical SIM card. Now, that may be something for me that's not worth it, but for you, you might say, oh, I don't care. I'm like you, Jay. I actually just have that one phone number, and I've always had an iPhone, so this is just another version for me. But yeah, I have to point that out, though. That is something in the hardware for me that it is just not worth it. I really think they should go back to a physical SIM card, period. We're not ready for eSIMs yet. At least tech enthusiasts are not. The masses may be ready, especially for people who have just one phone number, and they're going to keep. They're those people that actually upgrade from iPhone to iPhone, or they just don't upgrade at all. This isn't going to be a problem for them. It's not a problem at all. I'm just speaking from a more like a 99% tech creators view on some of these things. About how I feel about them, but then I shouldn't say 99%, like 70-30. But the point is, the eSIM for me became an issue but it was just on my primary line. But this is fine. I keep this phone number doesn't change. And that's why I just like, hey, this is going to be fine for me to use this on there. But I had to point that out. That is a huge flaw to me in this hardware, having eSIM only. Now, the screen on here is actually, again, 6.7 inch Super Retina XDR OLED, HDR10, Dolby Vision, 800 nits, 1200 nits peak brightness. That's a lot to say in one breath. But it is a 6.7 inch display coming in at 1284 by 2778. Sound familiar? Yeah, because that's the display that pretty much is on the 13 Pro Max, which everybody paid a ton of money for last year. And this year you get 458 pixels per inch at a much lower cost. Yeah, it has ceramic shield glass on here, even though I always put a tempered glass on pretty much all devices that I have. This is this display is absolutely beautiful, and it does very well in every lighting situation that I've put it in. Peak brightness 1200 nits. You'll see that when you're in just complete raw sunlight hitting right at the screen, and it can do it, man. 1200 is really bright when you think about it, but 800 nits is really bright. And when you think about that, your computer monitor probably isn't 800 nits. So think about it that way. Most computer monitors you think are really bright, and they're only between 200 and 500. Nearly all of them are. Some of them are a lot less than that. Some more are around 200 nits, but the average monitors out there are not very high in bright nitness. Nitness. I just made a word up. Nitness. The nitness. Yes, but this is a very bright, beautiful display, and I don't think you're going to have issues with this at all at any angle when viewing on it. Now, if you start to put on privacy glasses and matte screen protectors, that will do something to the display, but it'll always be good to you. Others may look at angles and say, ugh, that doesn't look right, but you don't worry about that. So another area where I think this is totally worth it, because the screen is definitely worth it for the price. The next area is the cameras. Now, the cameras on here are greatly improved because why? This is a new device. So before I get into there, I want to go into settings and go down to the camera and show you some things here, because we're talking about Apple, and I predominantly focus on video nearly for everything. And there are a lot of things about this device that it just can do better than almost all phones in this price range. And we're going to get to price at some point in this video, but this is absolutely greatness. This device has HDR video, and HDR video and enhanced stabilization can be on at the same time. And a lot of phones out there, they cannot. So when you think about how we used to talk about how Apple doesn't give us any options on devices for their cameras, they've stepped it up a lot. There's still not a pro mode, so to speak, but they have done a lot of work in getting us to see that they can help get us the great content we want with the cameras without us touching too many settings. And I used to be totally against this. I used to clown Apple a lot, but the fact is, folks, I've come around. The device can do HDR and it has stabilization at the same time, and I've tested it out. And as you can see, I leave mine on 4K 60 with these devices because it's just a matter of preference at that point. 4K 30, you're probably going to get the smoothest at 30 frames per second, obviously, but when it comes to just doing content for videos for me for YouTube, I love having it this way. And this can also do 1080p at 240 frames per second slow-mo. There's a lot of options in here. And one of the main things I like about this one over the 13 lineup, people keep trying to ignore this and compare it to another device, saying that the other device is the worst purchase of them all. I don't think so. I think that being able to do 4K 30 on the new lineup definitely shows. 4K 30 in cinematic video, because I try to put everything out in 4K because, even if you're not watching it in 4K, you'll have a pretty good experience watching it, and the details should be pretty good for you. But being able to get the upgraded cameras on even this so-called lower quality model or a lower version is phenomenal. The 13 lineup cannot do 4K 30, and I think that's kind of crazy. But as you see, for all the real strong movie buffs, you've even got 4K at 24 frames per second in cinematic video. That is great. So you can see all your settings here for the camera. They are giving you a lot, and even they have lens correction down here. I don't think a lot of people even saw that in their settings or know that it's there, especially the regular consumers. But you can set your settings like this, folks, and you will have some of the best video. If you just look at my settings right there, mirror my settings, however you want to, this is what you want to do. This is the settings that I use indefinitely on my cameras with this device. I do not change them. And it's even like that on my 13 lineup, maybe just with the addition of like ProRes or something like that every now and then. But the settings here are super simple. You do have these toggles at the top here where you can set how you want your photos to come out. Now you can even adjust the tone. You can adjust the coolness of it. Now they have these different filters where you can set them through. And you can see vibrant, rich, contrast, and standard. Now, I keep mine on cool because most of my Android devices, Pixels in particular, they pretty much have a much cooler tone, and I simply enjoy that. So you've got all your toggles up here for flash and things like that. You can do live, turn off your live on there, but I keep the live on just because there's iPhone people that might still want to see the motion in the camera, but that's nothing new. You've got your 4x3, your square, or your 16:9 you can shoot at. A lot of people don't know that the iPhones have that for some reason, but the 4x3 is where a lot of people tend to leave it. Then you can click here and adjust the exposure. That's something you can do. And then you've got more toggles down here that are pretty much mirroring the top up there for the photos. So video, now I remember in video where people used to say that, you can't have any control over it. Well, now basically Apple just put the toggles up here, 24, for 30 and 60. You can go through each one. And now the cinematic video is the same way. You can change it to 24 and you can even go down to HD. But I just kind of leave it right there because I think that's just what it is. And you got your slow-mo, your time-lapse. And little simple things on the iPhone let you know. Even other places do it too, but you can see it actually changes to let you know. The icon down there changes to let you know, hey, you're doing something different. Yeah. So this is pretty cool. I think that's probably the least used function of everyone's camera. But I had to spend some time on the cameras because that is pretty much my main thing here. And look, if I go into the last thing I shot was a rolling shot with this device. I was going over a bridge. And I was coming off a bridge, and this is how stable it is. This is a very bumpy bridge. It was very bumpy, but it in fact is so smooth because that 60 frames per second with the enhanced stabilization is something that people probably just don't talk about with iPhones. So the cameras, obviously, for me, are like one of the strongest points of this device, and it's the most important point of this device. I genuinely feel like as a creator, you should be able to create with whatever's in front of you. And you don't know how much content I push out now with iPhones instead of my more powerful devices, like my actual mirrorless cameras and DSLRs. Now, my mirrorless cameras for vlogs, obviously, that's going to always be in place. Team Sigma, and Team Sony is just going to stay in place for vlogs. Nothing's touching that. But the cinematic video on the front and the rear of this device is just absolutely great. And that is how I would use these cameras for creation. Now, performance on here, again, unmatched performance by nearly other devices in this price range won't get the software and support that this device will get. It just won't happen. Apple is known for giving years of software updates to things, to their devices, and that's just how they roll. That's how they roll. So there's absolutely nothing you can tell me to convince me that Apple will not support this device for another 5 years, possibly even 7. If I can keep this device that long, which I probably will, unless a new version comes out and I just trade it in for the 15 or whatever, but there's absolutely no reason I would need to move from this device as long as I just keep it in pristine condition. Keep it in a case. MagSafe. Ooh, Bars. So software performance on here, it's great. I mean, I don't have any quarrels about how this thing is going to perform. It's just going to be a good device, man. Period. There's nothing about this device when I pick it up I'm going to say, man, I really wish that this would stop doing this. It literally performs extremely well in nearly every situation. That's just how it is. It's been great the entire time because iOS 16 has done great strides to make this a better device. Now, there are things in the software like crash detection and also exclusive to the 14 lineup, crash detection, and then that satellite tracing thing, like if you don't have service. Those are things that I hope I never have to use, but they're there. And while that's not new technology to smartphones, it's new to iPhone people who bought the 14 lineup, and they're extremely happy about it. So celebrate with them, man. Celebrate with each other. It's okay. It's okay if a person is celebrating something that you know is not new, but you want to bust a bubble like that? Really? Imagine if it's your mom or your pops, or your daughter, your son, your niece, your nephew, they're excited about it. I don't think you'll burst their bubble by telling them, that's old news. You're going to celebrate with them and then probably slide it in there later and say, they actually been out for a minute though. Really? Yeah, here, let me show you. Yeah, that's how you slide into someone's feelings without actually hurting them. So you've got a lot going on with this device. And the last two areas that I think are totally worth it, because performance is totally worth it. Cameras are extremely worth it. The screen is totally worth it. The design, not so much, needs an upgrade, needs a change. Yeah. Camera modules, yeah. Hardware, though, totally worth it. Battery life. Battery life is totally worth it, folks. This only has a 4323 milliamp hour battery, but in fact, it will last you for some days to come. Meaning, you should be able to get loads of battery life out of this thing with no problems. I mean, you could go probably, I don't know, depending on who you are. Now, I can make it at least 2 days or 2.5, maybe almost 3 days with this device. I probably have made it 3 days before. On a light day, I can go like a week. Like if I have a bunch of light days, I can go a week on this device without a charge. Easy. But because there are some days where I leave it at home and take my other device, or take 2 other phones or something like that. But nonetheless, I could go a week on here on some of my light days. Easy. A week easy. But battery life, folks, there's no special conversation. It depends on the user. Some of you guys are not going to be able to go a week on a light day. Some of you guys are not going to be able to go 2 days on a heavy uses. So your battery life also depends on the apps that you have. I don't have a lot of apps on here, folks. I only put apps on the device that I'm actually going to use. Simply put. And the primary ones, or most of the primary ones, are right here on this page. That's it. And then there's a few of them in here, and that's it. That's I don't do anything spectacular. I took off a lot of the widgets and stuff like that. I was like, I'm just not going to do it. So, nonetheless, this is where we are. Battery life is phenomenal on this. I think even the heaviest user would take them a long time to kill this battery in a day. It could hold up. It's that good. Now, battery life, totally worth it. Price. Here's where it gets a little controversial for this device, because people keep going backwards to the conversation of the 13 Pro Max, because I think that's the foundation where this device was developed. But there are a lot of things on this device that the 13 Pro Max does not have, and I just think people don't want to admit that. That has been a conversation on this channel that I've had multiple times. It's missing the camera. It doesn't have this. It doesn't have ProRes. But again, a regular consumer is going to feel like this is a huge win. And I see you in the comments, regular folks. I see you commenting, saying, I don't care what nobody else is saying, because that's exactly how a lot of people feel. The only arguments are between people who are following tech enthusiasts opinions and tech enthusiasts. Those are the only people that feel like this is not worth $8.99. Folks, as a tech enthusiast, I still think it's worth $8.99. I think it's worth $8.99 because I don't dwell on the past. I'm not going to compare too much to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, because I've done an extensive video on what this has that the iPhone 13 Pro Max doesn't have, and vice versa. So for me, it's totally worth it. And if you could get it on like some kind of regular folks, if you can get it on a trade in or some kind of get an old phone or just an old iPhone traded in, you got an even better deal. You know what I mean? Like, you got a sweet deal. If you did not pay full cost for this, you got an even better deal, which means you could have won up in your memory. That's what I recommend people do. If you have a nice amount on a trade in, go up in your memory option. Go up in your memory size, because this goes up to 512 gigs in storage, unlike some of the other older iPhones. They only went up to 256. That was it. So go up to the 512 gigs if, in fact, you do have a nice trade-in. Go up to it, man. Go on up to it. Because this now starts at 128 gigs, and so that's a huge plus. Do you know iPhones used to start at 8 gigs back in the day when they first launched? And 16 gigs became... I have an iPad that has 16 gigs of storage, and it's an LTE model. My original iPad, I talk about it all the time, that device has 16 gigs of storage. That's it. That was like top of the line back in the day. So for this one in 2022, Apple's doing 128 gigs to start off this lineup. This is their newest phone right here, one of their newest devices, and I think it's a hit, man. I think it is doing better than most people might think it is. And, you know, you put a nice case on it, folks. You slap it in a nice case and put a tempered glass on it, put your Apple Care on it, and you're good to go. That's exactly what I do every time I'm buying an iPhone. I put a case on it, I put a tempered glass on it, and I buy my Apple Care, because support is the last win for this device, man. I kind of brushed on it before, but support is unmatched by any other OEM right now. Because, and I'm talking about like for my personal experiences, I've walked into the Apple store 20 minutes, 30 minutes from my house and got replacements on the spot, or they fixed my current device right there while I waited with no extra money. Simply put, your warranty is going to run out if you really love iPhones, and if you are smart, you'll buy that Apple Care and just make sure you keep yourself covered for the time that you're really going to enjoy it, just in case you might want to trade it in. So it's your man Jay. This video was recorded with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Yes, that is a fact. So look what I'm going to do here. I'm going to show you here. I'm going to go ahead and flip the video, flip it around here so you can see me. Put it on HDR, but look here. Boom, there it is. iPhone 13 Pro Max. You see I'm running the same case setup right here. For now, there's the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And this goes to show to me how great these cameras really are on all these iPhones. And because this iPhone can do the same thing. It genuinely can. So it's your man Jay. Is the iPhone 14 Plus worth it? Yes, it is. There's a lot that I didn't cover on this device, like IP68, Apple Pay, which is very important, FaceTime, iMessage. The ultra wide camera is 2.4. You know what I'm saying? And the main camera is f1.5, folks, and it is a wide lens. The center camera on the front here with Face ID is all there. You've got f1.9. That is a huge, folks. This phone has Bluetooth 5.3. There's a lot of things. It has Wi-Fi 6, not Wi-Fi 6E, but still, you know, hey, Wi-Fi 6. Yeah. Comes in a bunch of different colors like midnight, purple, starlight, blue, and red. As you can see, I have the blue model. So you make your own choice and you hit the net, you search for yourself. You do whatever you want to do. Stereo speakers on here too, I forgot to mention. But this is a powerful device, and it is really worth it to me. I say, you give your opinion. Some of you guys will always read the title and start typing. I can tell because the video will be like 30 seconds in and there's 15 comments. Like, come on, watch the video and comment as you go. I respect a person who's got like 6 comments on a video at different parts of the video, because I know they're actually paying attention and watching and supporting your man Jay. The iPhone 14 Plus, yeah, it's worth it. I'll see you in the next video.